Zoom, can you hear it? Can anybody hear it or not hear it?
I can hear you, George.
Okay, guys. John, you said?
Yes, George.
Okay. It's a little difficult, so if you want to identify yourself, go ahead. If not, don't worry about it this meeting. Just, we're not set up quite as usual.
George, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Hi, George.
Okay.
This is John Joyce reporting for Lake LA News in print and online.
You know, I'm just reading the Roseman News.
Thank you.
George, this is John Yucasted, AV Mutual Group.
Great, yeah, thank you.
This is Vincent Dino, Palmdale Water District.
Great. Here, it's a little difficult, but we can hear.
Yeah, I hear you, George. Alicia.
Hey, hello, Liz. It's been a while.
Hi.
Okay, that'll move us on to number 5. Public comments. The period open to the public. If anybody would care to address the board, it's an issue. It's not on the agenda later on. Now's the time to do so. Okay, move on to item number 6, adoption of agenda. So, motion would be in order, and we'll have to have a roll call on that item.
President, this is Rob. I move we adopt the agenda.
Director Mercy, second.
I'll second.
Louder. Okay, motion second. Thank you.
Yeah, I'll
Okay.
second.
Okay.
Sorry,
Thank you.
Drew, you can do this one.
Madam Secretary?
Gary Van Dam,
Yes.
Audrey Miller,
Yes.
Robert Harris,
Yes.
Keith Dias,
Yes.
Drew Mercy,
Yes.
Frank Donato,
Yes.
George Lane.
Yes. Carried. That'll bring us down to item number 7, consent calendar. We have 2 items in the consent calendar. In the minutes of the meeting of June 13th, and adopt our joint tax sharing resolution with LA County. We have in either one of those, the joint resolution, we can't do much about that. We've had a chance to look at that. We have a motion regarding 7A1.
Director Mercy, motions.
Drew Mercy, Victor Mercy. Is there a second? I'll second. Director Donato. There's no further comments. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Aye.
Roll call.
Opposed, nay. Roll call.
Have to do it.
Oh, yeah, roll call.
Gary Van Dam,
Yes.
Audrey Miller,
Yes.
Robert Harris,
Yes.
Keith Dias,
Yes.
Drew Mercy,
Yes.
Frank Donato,
Yes.
George Lane.
Yes. Yeah, motion carried. Yeah, thank you. That'll bring us on to item number 8, the Finance Committee. And Director Donato is chairman of that committee, and he'll give a presentation on that.
Okay, the Finance Committee met last Thursday, and we'll discuss 8A1, consider possible action to accept and file the check registry list from June 30th to July 12th, 23. And our General Manager, Matt Newton, is going to go ahead and go over that with us.
All right, thank you, Director Donato. So in your board packet on page 22 is the first page of the checklist for the period that Director Donato just mentioned. And the Finance Committee went through this in detail last week. I just want to point out on the first page, item number 1 is a pretty substantial payment to DWR of just over $6.25 million. And we're going to talk about this on an upcoming item, but this has to do with the agency's what's called statement of charges. We pay monthly fixed costs to DWR for associated with the State Water Project, and we pay 2 large payments every year, one in January and one in July. So this is one of those 2 large payments that's paying for the bond associated with the original construction of the State Water Project. Everything else was pretty much in order. The Finance Committee had a few questions on some of the items, but nothing really jumped out. but be happy to answer any questions you may have on the checklist.
This Director Donato, I'll make a motion on 8A1.
Okay, we have a motion by Director Donato, 8A1. We have a second. Audrey?
Director Moore, will second.
In a second. Okay, if there's no further discussion, all in favor, Madam Secretary, give a roll call.
Gary Van Dam,
Yes.
Audrey Miller,
Yes.
Robert Paris, Keith Dias,
Yes.
Drew Mercy,
Yes.
Frank Donato,
Yes.
George Lane.
Yes. Motion carried.
Okay, it brings us to 8A2, consideration of possible action on the treasurer's report for the month ending June 30th, 23. Our finance manager, Teresa Yates, is going to give us an update.
Teresa, you might want to speak loud or maybe
Come up here.
here because these mics aren't working.
This is the closest you've ever been up here.
Okay. Good evening, directors. This is the treasurer's report for June. Average yield to maturity for the total portfolio, 3.195%, which was up 0.164% from May. 272 days is the average maturity for June, which is approximately 9 months. And total cash and investments at June 30th was $125.7 million, which was down $1.4 million from May 31st. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
So right now, our total investments, we're getting roughly 3.195 return on that.
But yeah, that's
So it keeps getting a little better each month. doesn't it?
absolutely. And if we flip over to page 3 of the treasurer's report or 33 of your packet, the bar chart there, so the blue line is the total value of the portfolio, the total portfolio. The black line is the LAIF rate. So you can see July of 22, it was 1.090%. A year later, June of 23, it's up to 3.167. So quite a big difference in just a year.
Another notable one was PFM. PFM rate was 3.5 on all their portfolio.
Yeah.
And we're going to have a presentation at the upcoming meeting.
The next board meeting, PFM will be here.
Right. That'll be with Wells Fargo.
No, that'll be PFM. We'll schedule Wells Fargo
Wells Fargo.
to come at a future meeting.
Okay, well, thank you much. If there's no further questions from directors or anyone from the audience,
Okay,
motion would be in order for 8A2.
yeah, I'll make a motion on 8A2 that we accept the treasurer's report.
Director Donato, we have a motion. We have a second.
Director Mercy, second.
Director Mercy, we have a second. Madam Secretary, if we could have a roll call.
Gary Van Dam,
Yes.
Audrey Miller,
Yes.
Robert Paris,
Yes.
Keith Dias,
Yes.
Drew Mercy,
Yes.
Frank Donato,
Yes.
George Lane.
Yes. Motion carried.
Okay, 8A3, this is a review of the 24 statement of charges from the Department of Water Resources, and we'll go back to our manager, Matt, on this.
All right, thanks, Frank. So the Finance Committee requested a review of the statement of charges. And as you know, we have an upcoming item. The next item on the agenda is to set our annual tax rate for all 3 counties that we serve, LA County, Kern County, and Ventura County. And setting those tax rates is really dictated by the statement of charges that we receive from Department of Water Resources every year. So I stole this presentation from the state water contractors, who's given a similar presentation before to folks explaining what goes into statement charges. So it's going to start pretty high level. It's not too long, so bear with me. feel free to jump in if you have any questions. So this obviously is a map of California showing the state water project facilities in red on the map there. Also shows the federal facilities that we do not participate or contribute financially to those projects. Also local projects such as the Colorado River project or the LA Aqueduct system. We do not participate in those projects either. This also shows the major waterways throughout California that contribute to the water supply for each of those projects, the state, federal, and local. So, little history of the State Water Project. It was originally designed to deliver nearly 4.2 million acre-feet of water per year. EWR has long-term water supply contracts with 29 state water contractors such as Avek. 30% of the water supply is used for irrigation and farmland, where 70% is used for residential and M&I needs throughout the state. So the contract that each of the contractors has is used to capture, conserve, and convey water throughout the state to pay for those facilities needed to do that. So, State Water Project isn't just a water supply project. It also serves as flood control throughout the state. It has fish and wildlife preservation, fish and wildlife enhancement. There's significant public recreation on the State Water Project facilities. And it also generates a significant amount of hydropower that supports the state's electrical grid, as well as the grid that is used to run the pumps associated with the State Water Project. So here you can identify it on the map on the left, identifies each of the State Water Project facilities along the California Aqueduct, made up of 36 storage facilities, over 20 pumping plants and stations, 4 pumping generation plants, 5 hydroelectric plants, and over 700 miles of canals, tunnels, and pipelines to move the water throughout the state. Also in yellow shows the conservation facilities, the biggest one probably being up there near Lake Oroville to conserve water that's captured as part of that runoff. Did somebody from the audience have a question? No? Okay. So here's location of each of the 29 state water contractors throughout the state. There's 24 M&I or municipal and industrial contractors, such as AVAC, and there's 5 ag contractors. Those are made up there. The biggest one being Kern County. We all know they serve a significant amount of ag in Kern County. As you can see, most of the contractors are in Southern California, but there are a few in Northern California and a couple that are north of the Delta. So it's important to know that when it comes to the statement of charges and paying for the State Water Project facilities, that each region, the State Water Project is broken up into regions, and only the facilities that are needed to deliver water to the specific region pay for their share of that facility. So, for instance, the North Bay facility or contractors are not paying for a majority of the facilities needed to move the water to Southern California. Obviously, Southern California, those contractors listed under the yellow area, they're paying the lion's share of the cost associated with the state. So each year we get before July 1st, we get from DWR the upcoming year's calendar year statement of charges. And this is based on our contract, and it's a formal document that outlines the amounts owed each month, regardless of how much water AVAC takes. So it's a fixed cost. So we pay these fixed costs whether we take 1 acre foot or a full 145,000 acre feet throughout the year. very detailed invoices. Here's a summary of our upcoming 2024 statement of charges. You can see it's broken down by month. On the far right is the total amount for the monthly payments. As I mentioned earlier, we have two large payments, one in January, one in July. In 2024, they're going to be just over $7.5 million. And then the remaining 10 months, it's just over $1.9 million per month. So that's why you see those significant invoices each month on our payables. The total amount for calendar year 2024 is about just over $34 million. So this is important because this amount is used to determine our upcoming tax rate that we need to set on property tax. As a comparison, this shows our calendar year 2023 tax rate as compared to the 2024. And those charges are broken up into two categories, capital charges and minimum charges. So you can see it's about on the upper portion on the capital, it's just under $2 million more than 2023. And it's about $4.4 million more on the minimum charges for the calendar year. So that's the brief overview of what makes up the statement of charges. No action is necessary in that item, and it kind of leads into our next agenda item tonight. So if you want to introduce this, Director Donato, now would be the time.
That is a lot of good information. I hope those listening in can hear it. If not, we may have to repeat that at another meeting. And so, for those listening in, did you hear that okay, or would you like it repeated at another meeting?
This is Keith. I could hear it quite well.
Okay, good. Maybe we're probably okay then. Okay, this is for information only at this point, so we appreciate it.
Yep, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Matt. Okay, it brings us up 8A4, consideration and possible action, a resolution R23-18, setting tax rates for the counties of Los Angeles, Kern, and Ventura. And Matt's going to go over that.
All right, thank you again. So on page 46 of your packet is a staff report and the proposed or recommended resolution R23-18. So on the screen is a spreadsheet that we went over with the Finance Committee just to give the committee confidence that we're setting the appropriate tax rate for the upcoming year. So on the top left, you can see the voter-approved tax revenue that the agencies received last 4 or 5 years. It's been between 27 million and just under 35 million last year. We collect that on, this is based on our budget, actual budget, and then previous budget year to date, and then what we're proposing in the upcoming budget cycle. On the right, you can see the statement of charges. We have it broken down in two different ways. One on a fiscal year, so that it ties to our budget cycle, and then one on a calendar year, because that's how we're invoiced from CWR is on the calendar year. So we'll look at the far top right, based on the just under $35 million with the statement of charges. So that's that amount of revenue that we're going to have to generate through the property tax to make sure we cover that amount. August, AVAC receives assessed values from the counties. We haven't received anything from LA County yet. We did receive Kern County. In early July, we received the statement of charges, as I mentioned. And then as far as timing, AVAC needs to set and approve the resolution adopting the tax rate and notify the 3 counties starting in early August for Kern County, and then a little later for LA County. So based on utilizing the same assessed value for the 3 counties as we received last year, and based on our statement of charges On a fiscal year being on just under 32 million, on a calendar year, just under 35 million. We're recommending that we keep the tax rate the same that it's been last couple, I don't know, decades or so.
Who's we?
We are staff.
Okay.
Good question.
Okay, just one.
Teresa and I, staff. Based on this, we're recommending that we adopt the resolution in your packet, which sets the tax rate of 0.0007049, consistent with the way it's been last 10, 15, 20 years, I believe. And Jim Markman, our attorney, has reviewed the resolution, and it satisfies the needs of the agency. So, with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Matt, that debt service voter approved, that was from what year or years?
That was from 1962. Yeah, it's in the resolution. And on the first page, it talks about the original indebtedness.
Should that not be going down?
Well, there's some of the principal is the original bonds are going down, but the state DWR is constantly
I'm
issuing.
looking at the debt service voter approved
Yeah, the
tax revenue.
Department of Water Resources is constantly issuing new bonds to manage and replace and upgrade the state water.
So what you're saying is,
But on the left-hand side, the debt service voter approved, that's what was done locally here in the Antelope Valley.
Yeah, that's tied to our state water contract with DWR. And that does not include our Avek's portion of the 1% ad valorem tax. So that's on top of the 34, 35.
can you explain to the audience, some of the board directors too, that what is that money used for? To pay off what?
The bonds and the costs associated with the state water project.
And also that allowed AVAC to have access to the California aqueduct.
Correct. Whether we take
It's one of the 29 contractors.
correct. And this payment to DWR each year is needed whether we take 1 acre foot or our full allocation each year.
And that water cannot be used for the general fund.
Correct. Good point. So that we keep the funds separate. You know, those funds that are collected through the tax revenue have to be used for the payment of the state water project. So we don't use these tax revenues generated to offset our annual operating costs. You know, staff, facilities, local facilities, and operation.
At least we're keeping the rate the same, but still the tax is up because the assessed valuation is up.
Correct. You can see that on the top left. That really, because the tax rate has been the same, it kind of indicates how much the assessed value has gone up each year.
And also, when the market crashed,
It goes down.
we got a lot less money coming this direction, but we're not going to see that. Prices are holding extremely, they're not selling many of them, but they're, the pricing of houses are staying. Their average median price home in Yellow Valley is like $525.
Great.
So we need a motion?
Yeah, we need a motion to approve resolution R2318.
So, okay, Director Donato, I'll make a motion, we approve 8A4 to consider possible action resolution R23-18 for setting the tax rate.
Is there a second?
Dr. Miller will second.
Dr. Donato, Dr. Miller. Is there any further questions or comments on 8A4? If not, Madam Secretary, if we get a roll call.
Gary Van Dam,
Yes.
Audrey Miller,
Yes.
Robert Karras,
Yes.
Keith Dias,
Yes.
Drew Mercy,
Yes.
Frank Donato,
Yes,
George Lane.
Yes. Motion carried.
that concludes my report on finance.
Okay, there's no further questions on Finance Committee. Yeah, thank you, Director Donato. That moves us on to High Desert Water Bank, and that's just also Director Donato.
Okay, so this is we're on item 8B1, and the monthly update on the High Desert Water Bank, and project engineer Justin is going to give us a presentation and introduce the crew that's in the audience as well.
Yeah. I'm going to attempt to do it from here. Thank you, Director Donato. I'll just do a quick check-in here. Director Dias, can you hear me okay?
Yes, I hear you, Justin.
All right, sounds good. Thank you. Yeah, good evening, President Lane, members of the board. We do have a couple guests in the audience this evening associated with the project. We've got Joe Long. Joe Long's with Stantec. They're the engineer of record for the project, and Joe's the project manager. And then we also have Harold Glasser with Kennedy Jenks, and they're our program management consultant on the project as well. So, thanks for being here. All right, so into our July monthly update for the project. I'm going to take it a little bit slower. I know it'll be a longer-ish presentation, but I'm going to go through a handful of these early slides a little bit more detail for Director Mercy's benefits. I don't know that you've been up here since we've given one of the High Desert Water Bank presentations, so hopefully you find it informative. So starting off, we start off with kind of an executive summary of the project, gets into the project objectives at the top, which is to develop the High Desert Water Bank to improve the reliability of the state water project, and as well as Avek's financial stability. And the goals of the project are to be able to recharge and recover 70,000 acre-feet per year within the bank, and has a direct pump-back component to the state water project. The ultimate total storage capacity of the project is 280,000 acre-feet, and there is a one-time 10% loss through the recharge process when the water is delivered to the bank. The map on the right-hand side depicts the High Desert Water Bank project itself. The top or northern boundary is Avenue A for the Kern County line. The eastern boundary is 280th Street West. The western boundary is 300th Street West, and then the California Aqueduct serves as the southern boundary to the project site. So about 1,500 acres in total. Some of the key features on the map, we have made quite a bit of progress on the project to date. You can see the recharge basin outlines here in the bottom, as well as up in this area up in here. We've got several stars on the map, and those indicate existing wells that have been drilled as part of this project. The yellow stars are the pilot recovery wells, the first 4 wells that were drilled on the project site. And then the blue stars are the net 6 recovery wells, which were drilled in 2022. So 10 wells currently exist on the site. The beige color in here is our habitat management land. We've committed to setting aside about 300 acres of land for mitigation through our CEQA process. And the aqueduct turnout structure is right here. It's about in the middle of the project, close to 290th Street West. And that's nearly complete, which brings us over here to our short-term goals, things that we hope to accomplish over the next 3 months. And leading in for the turnout, as I just mentioned, complete construction of the aqueduct turnout. That's getting very, very close. And we've got Tian Ing with Kennedy Jenks on the line to provide a construction update in the next few slides. We'll continue construction of the recharge basins and pipelines. Nicholas Construction is making good progress out there. We've got an update on that as well. Metropolitan Water District is going to their board on August 15th to seek an amendment to the agreement with Avek and authorization for some additional budget for the project, as well as authorization for construction of the off-site power, the Southern California Edison power coming to the site, which was not originally authorized in the agreement. We also have a storage agreement with the Water Master, which is not on tomorrow's Water Master agenda, but it will be on the Water Master agenda in August. So we're looking to enter into that agreement between Avek and the Water Master. And then the big milestone here is number 5. We're getting very, very close to this, but beginning recharge in the stage 1 recharge area. So this lower area here is what we call the stage 1 recharge area. And we had an early goal to try to begin recharging in that portion of the high desert water bank before the contractor is completely done with the recharge basin contract itself. Hopefully that wasn't too much. I'll move on unless there's any questions. Section 2 gets into kind of our program management component, and we've got our program team up here. Of course, we've got Avek here at the top. We've got our project partner, Metropolitan Water District, our program management team, Kennedy Jenks, Stantec, as I mentioned, the engineering, design, and hydrogeology team. We have some legal help from Markman and Evers to acquire the land for the project. And then current contractors working on the project are Floyd, working on the aqueduct turnout, and Nicholas Construction working on the recharge basin. And then Kennedy Jenks as well, serving as our construction management for both of those projects. The left-hand side kind of gets in very high-level detail on some of the items that Kennedy Jenks has recently been helping us with. They participate in all of our progress meetings and overall tracking and review of the project progress, checking with various team members, making sure the project stayed on track. And we recently received a 30% design package for the well equipping and recovery, and they provided comments on that as well on our behalf on the engineering side. The right-hand side has some upcoming board decisions and actions. We talked already about the storage agreement with the Water Master, so that will be coming in front of the AVEC board prior to going to the Water Master board. Executing the amendment with Metropolitan, so when they're finished with their board process on the 15th, and that will be in front of the AVEC board as well. And then item C, which is related to the turnout construction, it's a matter of process. When that project is closed out, we will be coming to the board for authorization to issue the notice of completion for that project as well. Section 3 is engineering and field work. This is work that Stantec and their team are working on. So they're continuing to work on providing answers to any requests for information, improving submittals for the contractors that are currently working on the project, make sure that they're building it to our specifications and consistent with what they bid on. Participating in the weekly construction progress meetings as well with those contractors. Their sub-consultant, Montgomery & Associates, is working on updating our groundwater model with information that was obtained from the drilling of the first 10 recovery wells. And then, as I mentioned, we provided comments on the 30% well equipping package. Those have been provided back to Stantec, and they're working on addressing those comments and progressing that design to the next level. Might be a little smaller read, but this is our contract, the contract that we've entered into to support the High Desert Water Bank project. The way this table is laid out is we have the vendor or contractor that we're working with on the left-hand side. The middle provides a very brief description of what that contract is that they've entered into. And then we've got the contract amounts, any subsequent amendments or change orders to that contract, and then followed by the total contract amount as it stands today. Then we've got the payout to date, and probably the easiest thing to look at, which is the percentage of the contract paid to date. So you can see those numbers across the side. Closest couple that are completed down here, you can see noted in red. Then we've got some very close to being completed here, like the turn chart, some of the initial tasks, and then we've got the turnout somewhere on here. Here we go. That one's getting very close as well. But everything's tracking very good according to the approved budgets that we have. This page, again, a little tough to read, might take some rows out of this for the next time, but this is a summary of the capital program accounts. We established an account that Metropolitan funds, so they make deposits into that account, and those are the funds we use to pay our contractors and our consultants. Getting down to the very bottom of this, we recently received another deposit from Metropolitan Water District, the amount of about $5 million. That amounts to a total now of about $60 million that Metropolitan Water District has paid towards this project. And our payments to our contractors and consultants through July 10th amounts to about $4.5 million. So that's been paid, but that leaves us a balance of about $1.5 million roughly in the capital program account right now. And we've got an outstanding invoice to Metropolitan Water District for about $4.8 million. That's due mid-August. So they've done a good job of paying on time, and we've done a good job of managing our contractors and full payments to make sure that those get out on time as well. The next slide gets into the construction update, and I guess listen closely to our little phone there. And Tien, you can go ahead and get started if you're ready. Maybe speak a little bit louder.
Thank you, Justin. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, good evening, directors. This evening, we have two construction projects to update. The first one is the Aqueduct Turnout Turn-In project. As you can see here, Justin said the project is almost done. We estimated that the last day of construction is going to be next Friday, August 4th. So the turnout turn-in structure is done. The control building should be done this week. They're doing minor electrical wiring and installing fire extinguishers. The meter vault is ongoing till Monday. They still have some pumps, exhaust fan, and a ladder safety fall protection system to install. Flow meters completed, steel pipes completed, site work, paving and security fencing to complete by August 3rd. Paving actually just finished today. We will have startup to test all the communication system starting July 31st, which is next Monday. Next slide, please. We also put together a project status and started with the schedule. The original contract completion date was January 5th of this year. And last year, we issued a change order number 1 to install fiber optics from the control building ties into the DWR Check 43 control system. And that added 43 calendar days, which bring the contract completion date to February 17 of this year. As I just mentioned, the anticipated last day of construction is next Friday, August 4th. So what it means is that this project is running beyond the contract completion for 169 days. Out of that 169 days, 51 of them are wet weather days, meaning that it's raining and the site is too wet for the contractor to construct or work on construction, do construction work. On this slide here, we have project financials, potential change orders. We've broken it down into 3 categories. The first one being DWR requested changes. The second one is design revisions. And the third one is the contractor claim of change conditions. We put an asterisk on all the estimated costs. It was because the contractor is behind in submitting cost requests for cost order changes packages with detailed breakdown and justification. This is because they have staff turnovers. But they should be able to catch up very soon. So all those change orders are subject to be verified and negotiated.
What does that one mean, contractor request of change conditions? Third one.
What it means is, Director, let me give you an example under that category called change conditions. So this is the contractor inform us, but they yet to submit the packages such as that they determine that soil compaction testing requirement, they don't think it's their responsibility, and they think it belongs to the owner. That's one example. The other example is they say the wet weather condition impacted their site conditions. Each time after a rain event, they have to come up and clean up the trench mud and other activity before they can continue constructions. Those are some of the examples under that category. Now for DWR requested changes category, some of those examples are they changed the security fencing. They wanted to add more to it. around the aqueduct turn-in structures. And another example is they requested to install solar panel to back up the battery. This is because this facility currently do not have SCE power yet, but it will in the future, so that temporarily.
I've ordered a change order, so it's a little different, and so you might be a little more explicit next time.
Yes.
So there's several items under consideration, but by just reading this, it's very hard to follow up.
Okay. Got you. Next slide, please. Here's our next step action item. We have requested the contractor to submit all the change order packages. We have notified them on July 17. As soon as we receive those packages, we're going to expedite our review. We're going to conduct a change order meeting. It could be multiple times per week with the contractor, negotiating change orders and liquidated damages amount. And after we're done, we're going to present the change order to Avek committee and Avek board for review and approval.
This is Director Donato. Can you go back to the prior slide, please?
Yes.
Okay, the question I have was, you made a comment, the reasons, and one of them was the compaction of the dirt, that it's the owner's responsibility to make sure the ground's hard. That didn't make any sense to me.
Be honest with you, it didn't make sense to me either. But that was on their list, and they're yet to submit packages. So.
Okay, so, and you're saying right now, these are what the.
If I could just clarify on that. They're arguing that the testing of the compaction, not the physical work to compact.
Yeah, but aren't they, if they're compacting the dirt, aren't they responsible to meet their specifications?
Exactly, and we're arguing with them.
Oh no, I just wanted to, I'm bringing that for clarification for everybody here. And these items here, these are not set in stones yet.
Correct.
You're gonna shave some
work on it with
shave the cheese
banks and then bring it back. Yeah,
especially with that.
We want the board to be surprised on these items, so we thought we'd bring them to you as early as possible, let you know that we're working on it.
Okay. Thank you.
Here are some of the monthly photos. Here's a look at an elevated view of the aqueduct. The structure in front of you next to the canal is the turn-in structures. And then the picture, the valve vault being middle top, and then the top right is the control building. The compacted base that marked in white dash line is actually area outline for paving, which they have done. So in the next update, we'll show all the fencing will be installed and also paving. Next slide, please. Here's a closer view with a different angle of the control building and the valve vault or metering vault. Next slide, please. This is a picture of the traveling screen located with the aqueduct turn-in structures. Next slide, please. And there's a picture of what inside the 84-inch pipeline looks like. Next slide. Project update number 2, the stage 1 and stage 2 recharge improvement project. The project completion date is October 11 of next year. And the stage 1 pipeline and also the stage 1 berms or spillway concrete work is going to carry on to the end of August of this year. However, stage 2 for the recharge basin they're going to continue on to at least June of next year. Next slide, please. Here's a photo of the spillways, which within the stage 1 basin, there are a total of 6 of them. They're interconnected. If one basin water level is too high, it will come up and use these structures here to overflow to the other basin. Justin, can you flip to the next slide? I think it will show better with an elevated view. Yeah, and here's an elevated view of the spillways after the concrete pour, and around it, which the contractor is currently working on, there are curbs that they will be ready to pour concrete tomorrow morning. Next slide.
Hey, wait. So, explain why we need a spillway.
We need a spillway is because of, let's say for stage 1, of all the 6 basins, not every single one of them have a turnout pipeline going in. Oops.
Sorry, Tian, sorry for interrupting.
Okay.
I thought you pull this show on a map. So if you don't mind, Tian, I'll take over real quick.
Okay.
But, this is the stage 1 recharge area shown here on the map. And so you can see there's a series of basins here. There's going to be a turnout, this is called turnout number 1, in about this vicinity of what we call basin 6. There'll also be a turnout close to the star, I guess, kind of on this map. That'll be turnout number 2, and that's going to be in basin 4. So those are the only 2 turnouts to this series of 6 basins in the stage 1 area. So the way that Stantec designed this is that we will, we can save on some cost by only having to build 2 turnouts, which are a little bit more expensive than doing the spillways, and instead be able to just use the 2, put water into this area of basin number 6. That water will go kind of in a snake-wise fashion throughout the basin. So it'll come down to the lower end of basin 6 and then spill over that concrete structure into basin 5 and then kind of snake back the other way, spill over into basin 4 and so on and so forth.
So the spillways are utilized for the retention of the groundwater recharge basins. I thought it was for the aqueduct.
No, yeah.
I didn't see an aqueduct. I was just wondering.
Yeah.
I never know what DWR. They make us put concrete things in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, it'll allow one basin to fill up prior to it spilling over.
Yeah, okay, I understand now.
Yeah.
Thank you,
All right,
Justin.
Okay, yeah.
Next slide. And here's the curb that the contractor's been working on, and tomorrow they're going to do concrete pour on basin number 6. Next slide, please. Also, the other part of the contractor, the pipeline crew, has been busy the last month or so working on doing grouting inside the pipe. After the welding is done of the 2 pipes, they have to go inside and use grout, non-string grout, to grout out all the spacing between the 2 pipes so that the steel pipe itself never come in contact with any carry water. Justin, I believe this is my last construction update slide for this month.
Good job, Ken. Thank you. Any questions?
Yeah. The last comment he just made is so the water will not come in contact with any steel. Is that what he said?
Yes, the steel pipe. Yes.
All right. Thank you, Tian. So getting down to the last few slides of my portion of this update. Section 8 is kind of other items, just kind of a catch-all. So I thought I'd update you all on Metropolitan Water District, where they're at. I mentioned at the beginning, I think the first slide, that Metropolitan will be going to their board on August 15th to seek additional funding for the project. They're seeking an additional $80 million to complete the project, not including the treatment facility. They're planning to, part of our agreement with Metropolitan is that they will review and concur with the treatment facility design So Stantec has gotten that to a certain point, developed a technical memo. So they're reviewing that, and we're expecting comments. They said mid-July, so we haven't seen anything yet. But at some future date, once they've agreed to the treatment technology, they will be going back to their board at that time for authorization for the treatment facility itself. But right now, they're seeking the remaining budget authorization for the project and authorization to make their deposit with Southern California Edison to start the process to bring off-site power to the high desert water bank site. There's a potential CEQA addendum that they're seeking, some minor language changes to the CEQA document that we've approved so far. It's a process that Metropolitan needs to go through to kind of approve and adopt Avek's CEQA document. So we're reviewing that. We only recently got a draft, and that's under review with Nick Gorelli, who's in Jim Markman's office. He's their environmental counsel. So he's looking at that. We'll be sure to update you all on that, whatever comes out of that. The other item we've kind of put on your radar is a ribbon cutting. We mentioned that Metropolitan is interested in doing some type of ribbon cutting event for the project. Their media affairs team came out and toured the site with me last 2 weeks ago, I guess it's been now, and we kind of walked around and just they wanted to get the lay of the land. They have been out there just to decide where the best location for it might be, what time of day, what they might want to show off, that type of thing. So they're working internally on pinning down some different details of things that they might need to rent or bring out or whatever it may be. And so they're looking at a late August or early September date for that. But they did tell us as soon as it's ready to let water go into the basin, to do it. Don't wait for the ribbon cutting event. They're eager to get as much water in there as possible. So.
Why don't they want to do it 12 noon next week?
Yeah. There'll be a lot of mixers or something probably. All right. With that, we have Harold Glasser with Kennedy James here, and Paul Chow is on the line. As I mentioned, that's going to the board to get some authorization for additional budget for the project. So we've asked them to come and speak with the board on kind of how the project has developed and how typical projects like this go, and how the engineering team has kind of refined cost estimates as different phases of the project have gone. So I'll turn it over to Harold. Sure.
Yes, and it's a good report, and it keeps the board up to date, what's happening. But the pictures really don't do it justice. I mean, it's a mammoth project right there.
True. Yeah. We're working on a time-lapse video that we'll probably send it to you because it may be easier to look at on your own time, but yeah,
it's great.
It's pretty cool. Yeah.
Good evening, directors. Thank you. And just as a bit of a reminder, I think I've spoken to the board, maybe most of you before, about the slides that's in front of you right now. This is a bit of a primer on how projects proceed from...
Harold, maybe come up a little closer to the mic, if you don't mind.
Right there. It's for Keith, because you guys... No, that's fine. Director Dias, can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can. Thank you.
Okay, great. So the slide in front of you now is just a bit of a primer on how projects proceed from inception to development, and then actually to design, delivery being construction, startup. And one of the things that's important about this is when you consider all the bulleted items in each of the three phases, is that a lot of technical work and environmental work and legal and financial work goes into each phase. And I think maybe the most important concept is how does the cost estimates of the project evolve as more information and knowledge is gained about the project itself. So we've been through the facility and business planning phase that was conducted some time ago by actually other firms. There was a project formulation stage. There was environmental work that was done. Justin mentioned the CEQA documentation. There was a business case evaluation to consider the finances and whether the project financials penciled out as something favorable to the agency and, of course, your ratepayers. Then there were agreements that were put in place between Metropolitan and the agency, and also land acquisition was a key part. This is a huge 1,500 acres. Land acquisition is a huge component of this endeavor. And then value engineering was also conducted to evaluate ways to perhaps meet the goals of the project while doing some of the engineering and construction in a more cost-effective manner. So at that stage, what we were all working with was what in our profession we call a reconnaissance level cost estimate. And it had some plus or minus boundaries, I think plus 30%, minus 50%, because we still did not know a lot of information yet about how things would go in the field. So in the next phase, under development and exploration, there was an extensive field testing program conducted by the hydrogeology team. The geotechnical engineers also did a great deal of drilling to support the design engineering. All of this was part of technical refinement and improvement and includes the preliminary design. Preliminary designs basically define what will be designed in the final product to meet the goals of the project. And in concert with that is more refinement of the environmental documentation and the commitments that are made by the agency, in your case, the mitigation areas. And then the cost estimate is further refined because at that stage, the investment requires elimination of uncertainty and better definition of risks. And then finally, the phase that we're in right now, which is design and delivery, as is evidenced by the slides that you saw in the photographs, the project is now in final design by stages. That's Joe's team at Stantec. Permitting is well underway. You're applying to the Water Master for storage agreement. Obviously, advertised bid and award, construction, all the environmental mitigation monitoring is ongoing, and then packages, construction packages are placed online. They go through startup commissioning and operator training of John's staff. And at that point, the engineer's cost estimate for each of the construction packages serves as the overall cost estimate when you total up all the packages for the total project cost. So that's the approach to project development. It's the approach we've consistently applied since the beginning of the project, and we're very much in the design and delivery phase right now.
No, Paul, thank you, Harold. And I think now, Paul, you're on the line.
Yep.
Let's advance the slides for Paul. Paul.
Okay. Thanks, Justin. Yeah, so over the next few slides, we're going to summarize where we currently stand with the overall project cost estimate. And to do that, we're first going to start with where we started originally with this project, with the 2018 cost estimate, which was the $131 million, which formed the basis for the agreement between Avek and Metropolitan for the project. And so this was truly a reconnaissance level cost estimate. There was a limited amount of field investigation and design completed prior to the development of the estimate. And it's notable to discuss kind of what was not included in the 2018 cost estimate.
Director Lane, let me ask you a question. Those are very major items. Why were they not included?
Yeah, so for some of these items, there was not enough data to define it. For example, one is the offsite Southern California Edison power distribution. There was not enough information and work with SCE to define what the power distribution requirements were going to be for the project at that time to define that cost. And also there was another example is for the groundwater treatment. At that time, there wasn't any, there was limited data, water quality data, and at that point did not indicate treatment was required.
Limited data, but we never brought up these items need to be done, but we don't know the cost? Or were they caught by surprise?
No, so at the time, there was an understanding between AVAC and Metropolitan that the offsite power distribution was not included at that time, and that would be addressed in the future once more work was completed with SCE. And also, similarly for the treatment requirements, that is, there are specific provisions in AVAC's agreement with Metropolitan where such that if as the project was developed, as more wells were drilled and the data showed that treatment may be required, there was a mechanism in place in order to incorporate that in the future.
Yeah, that's right, Paul. And just to add on to that, to make sure the board's clear, when we developed the agreement between Metropolitan and AVAC for this program, Metropolitan reviewed the information we had for the cost estimate. And part of that process, they acknowledged that there wasn't enough information for to determine a cost estimate for the offsite power, or whether treatment and what type of treatment was going to be necessary.
But they were aware of it before
They
the
were
contract
aware
was
of both
signed?
of those issues as part of our communication, and even in the agreement, it references
But it looks like for
those.
them to get that approval for that cost increase, it's been a lot longer than we thought originally what was conveyed to the board.
Yeah, so, and part of the hang up is just going back and forth with Metropolitan and them feeling comfortable and getting enough information to present to their board. You know, they have a lengthy process to go through their committee and board, and we're finally to that point where they've gone through the committee and they're scheduled to go to their board August 15th to seek approval. But they've known about these two unknowns, the offsite power and the treatment, for quite a while.
Looks like pretty poor planning to me. When you have tens of millions of dollars of increase. I mean, tens of millions.
Yeah, the power cost. How much is the power cost?
About 11 million. The project portion or MET's portion is about 11 million. But that's probably an $80 million.
Actually, a $70 million capital expenditure to Southern Cal Edison. We're actually fortunate enough that Southern California Edison looked at this as an extension of a standard facility. So you're only paying a portion of that is going to facilitate the power to our site.
That's 131, that's the total estimated increase in cost?
No, that was the original estimate. That did not include the offsite power and did not include the treatment.
What is that?
That estimate was completed in 2017. That $131 million estimate, that was...
What's the new estimated cost?
Paul's got a slide. The next slide, I think, gets into that, Paul. Does it not?
Correct. Yeah,
Yep.
so the current project estimate is 211 million, and this does not include the treatment facility, which is handled separately, and I'll explain why that's the case. So for the 211 million, this is $80 million above the original estimate, and this is the amount that Metropolitan is moving forward with their next board review and authorization to get approval for. And so this estimate is based on a recently completed design milestone, the 30% design for the stage 3 recovery system, which in general includes equipping of 27 wells that are planned for the project, the recovery piping that brings the well water back to the aqueduct, and all the associated electrical and instrumentation required for those facilities. And so this was a significant milestone, as this is a large dollar value for this construction project as part of the overall project. And so as part of that, with that 30% design completed, it was the Stantec, the design team, also produced an updated project estimate for the entire project. So of the $80 million of the additional costs that are associated with the current estimate, a large chunk of it is associated with bringing costs up to date into the future to account for the current construction cost market. So part of this is to bring the construction costs updated from 2018, the date of the previous cost estimate, up to 2023 construction cost dollars. And then we also add another factor on top of that to account for future cost inflation, to account for the time period between now and when the future construction projects are bid out and constructed. And as Matt mentioned earlier, Avek and Metropolitan's cost share for the SCE power distribution facilities is $11 million. And so that's part of this additional cost estimate. And lastly, there's $15 million associated with design revisions that were produced as part of this project. A part of this is to provide flood protection for the facilities that are being built as part of the project. The project site is at the confluence of 3 major stormwater channels that are present in the area that could bring significant flooding to the site. So in order to protect Avek and Metropolitan's investment, flood protection was incorporated into the design of the recharge basins and the wall sites, which will also help minimize downtime, especially during wet periods when Metropolitan's going to want to utilize the recharge system at the project site to recharge water. Additionally, with the hydrogeology study and analysis that has been completed as part of the project and development of design, the project team has determined that 4 additional wells are required in order to meet the recovery capacity objective for the project, which is 70,000 acre feet per year. So the original project concept included 23 wells, and now we have 27 wells, which is the number we have determined is required to meet our capacity objective. It's also important that, yep.
I have a question. I don't recall, was there an issue with the production wells that originally were scoped and approved in the budget? These 4 additional wells, when were they decided?
Additional wells were.
I can't even speak up because you got.
Sorry. Those 4 extra wells were actually identified very early in the project. So this is just part of the accumulation of the cost increase. So this was right after we finished our original hydrogeology analyses and looking at the drawdowns in the open.
But you don't know if those 4 wells will meet the minimum requirement to pump the gallons per minute until you drill them.
That's correct. So it's still an estimate, and we're actually going through a second phase of hydrogeology modeling based on the information we just got out of our last 10 wells, and we may adjust these wells again and hopefully low enough.
So are you saying those 4 additional wells became an afterthought of the original proposal to Met, basically after further studies?
The studies were done right when Stantec started, and we identified 27 wells. The original proposal that was done under the preliminary engineering had it down at 23 wells. So to meet the goal that Metropolitan wants to be able to extract 70,000 acre feet a year, we had to add on the extra 4 wells. And they're keenly aware of it.
Okay, that was the first question. Second question, I never heard anything about flood protection to protect the investment. When did that?
That also was done very, very early in the project. So actually it was done in Stantec's proposal. We identified that this area is a confluence of 3 major watersheds that come into this, specifically down the center of the site. So we recognized that the original preliminary engineering design was just push-up burdens that would get washed away as you went through. And it left all of the fixed assets at risk of being damaged through a flood flow. So when we came in as our proposal design was actually to channelize the flow through the center of the site. It's too late to go all the way back to the map. Through the center of the site and bring it from the west to the east and discharge it through. So we're protecting the north basins and the south basins from being flooded.
What kind of flood? I know this property.
Based on our estimate.
What? That's what we thought. You look out there and you think, where's the flood flows? But they did
we did a hydrology analysis of the entire site. So it goes from the ridgeline to the north and the ridgeline to the south. It goes easterly and westerly, and you get in a 100-year storm event. It's estimated you get somewhere in the order of 38,000 CFS going through the site. So if you were to look at that, quickly speaking, it would fill up a swimming pool at that rate in about 5 seconds. It's a huge flood. So the nice part is that we identified that early.
So Met approved all that?
Yes.
Met approved that.
And that knows all about it.
What does what doesn't met, from what's been being presented, what hasn't met then?
There's nothing on this list that Matt is not aware of.
Except
Yeah, so they're
what's happened in a year and a half with the inflation rate.
That's correct.
Right.
Yep.
And they're informed of that also.
I'm not on the committee, so I may ask some questions that other members don't know, but the 54 million, inflation, we do not have contracts in place?
No, you do not have contracts.
So give an example of what that would be.
So
We don't have a contract in place.
So we're constantly going out for these next stages of projects, right? So essentially we had an original an original project that's put in the wells. So there's a cost of the wells, that was done. There was a cost of materials to do the turnout itself, that's a project into itself. And currently we're all over the overall site grading and basin building right now. So from 2018 or 2017, when the original budgets were looked at, there's been an escalation in material costs, labor costs, fuel costs that equate to $54 million in depreciation. So you're looking at almost nearly a third, 38% since we started. 38%.
This additional cost of $80 million, Matt, that does not include the treatment plant.
Correct. That's correct.
So what are we looking at approximately if you include the treatment?
The treatment plant on the next slide, it's roughly 29 million, the estimate for the treatment.
You know, I would think, you know, our engineers are compensated, I think, pretty fairly. And there's things that the board is not aware of. And in the past, we've had more presentations like this and not have months and months go by. And so I think the board would appreciate that. There's more updates than what we're getting.
Yeah.
It used to be that way.
Yeah, we can provide more detail, you know, quarterly, monthly.
We have it online. You know, we don't ask for somebody to be here every meeting. So, you know, I think a person could be here in person. It's very hard to hear in person online.
Okay. Yeah, we can get more regular.
And if they want to do the projects, I mean, sure, there's a lot of people that would like to do it. So if they want to do it, they need to be committed.
Yeah. Yeah, we meet monthly with the committee, but maybe we need to provide more detail at the board.
You know, we're at a stage of the game now that until this project is complete, we might want to add another board meeting just on a subject. The committee thing doesn't work what George is saying. You have 3 people in there, you're explaining it to us. I mean, we believe what you're saying, but the other 4 directors don't know anything about this. And now we're at a point now, we're going to be spending what his question now regarding the treatment and everything else. We're not talking 80 million, we're talking 110 million at the end of the day. I think something like that, I think it becomes a board meeting with the consultants here. All we're doing is wasting a lot of our staff time and everything else because we're being redundant between the different committees and everything else, probably 3 to 4 times on the same subject matter. So I think the board should consider, you know, we're dealing with the biggest project in the history of this agency. I mean, we are.
Yeah.
And we're representing a partnership. I think there should be an actual meeting just on this. Because even when our committee meets, it's an hour and a half to go through this stuff. You know, so that's just my thought, and I think the board should think about it. And I think it'll take care of your questions because, you know, this is just off the top of their head by asking questions. It could be another 125 million.
Let's not hope not. I mean, we've built in enough.
I'm not saying I'm encouraging that, but you don't know what the heck's going on.
We built in a pretty aggressive inflation rate and a contingency on top.
Yeah, but you know what? If Powell decides he wants to raise the interest rate, where do you think these people borrow money from? Let's be. I mean, you want to play politics? That's real politics. You know what I mean? Okay, and we got people creating more environmental assessments, issues, and everything else. So I can tell you right now, nobody's going to be giving us a deal. It's all going to be what true cost is, and they're going to be, from us, going to be challenged on what they're projecting, what the costs are going to be, in which we represent a partnership with Metropolitan, which is, again, the biggest project this agency's ever had. I just think, in my opinion, as one director, that we need to think about this, but I think that this needs to be specialized on going forward.
Yeah, I can work with you, Director Donato, as the chair of the committee and President Lane and kind of talk about how we want to present.
Yeah, I've had no contact with Metropolitan, but I would be embarrassed to meet them, talk about these, cost overruns. I mean, they're not minor, tens and tens of millions of dollars.
Yeah.
Yeah, George, they're going to go, hey, George, did you know we need 4 more new wells?
Yeah.
I mean, they're $1 million to $1.2 million a piece.
But I mean, if you could come up here once every month, every 6 weeks, we'd appreciate it.
I would be one of the.
I think that's what you, we'll talk about it, but
Appreciate it.
we'll put it on the schedule, George. I think the board needs to be on the schedule.
But anyway, we thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Joe. So sorry to interrupt you, Paul. Did you want to buzz through this, or have we covered this item sufficiently?
Yeah, I think we've kind of covered most of this. Just to reiterate, the groundwater treatment is under Metropolitan review, and so that's going to be reviewed and approved, authorized at a later date. So currently, in terms of next steps, we're supporting Metropolitan with their current board process of going forward with the amendment on August 15th at their board meeting. Work with Metropolitan on the groundwater treatment design, and continue to refine the overall project cost estimate as we receive bids and the design is further refined. And we try to try to offset these kind of inflation costs as much as possible within the parameters of our design concepts. And lastly, as Tim mentioned in his construction update, hope to achieve a significant physical milestone here by commencing first recharge of the project next month. So with that concludes this portion of the presentation.
Thank you, Paul. So I think that is last site, right?
Yeah,
Justin?
that's it. That's, so this wraps up kind of the monthly update. Typically, no board actions at this time. So we'll bring you more as we get it. That concludes the report. Unless there are any final questions. All right. Thank you.
Good job, Justin. Thank you.
That concludes my report.
Okay, yeah, thank you, Dr. Donato. And, okay, we'll get to the item, then we might take a 5-minute break, but item number, there's no board order on this last one, but HC1, Water Master and Groundwater Committee, and that's Rob Parrish, and I think Rob, you want to start with Rob or Matt?
Matt's going to be representing us tomorrow also.
So you're not going to, you will not be able to attend, and
I will not get.
okay.
Yep.
Matt, you'll be there.
So I'll cover tomorrow's meeting on behalf of the agency as our board seat. So we usually take this time to review what's coming up on the Water Master agenda and any hot buttons, opportunity for the board to give me direction on which way to vote tomorrow. So in keeping with last meeting's routine, Angel's going to present this item. As you know, Angel's well up to speed on the Water Master issues, so she'll walk through each of these items.
Okay.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Angel.
Matt. Okay, so included on your agenda packet, starting on page 74, is a copy of the Water Master board meeting agenda for tomorrow. I have 4 items that I will highlight in this agenda. The first item is agenda item number 9. This is for consideration and possible action to approve the 2023 supplemental assessment in the amount of $4.50. At last month's Water Master meeting, the board was unable to unanimously vote to approve the $5 assessment as presented. they were unable to approve the $5 supplemental assessment as presented. The Hallmark Group used cash flow to determine the amount of the supplemental assessment. The initial projected cash flow that was presented at the last board meeting did not include the variable assessment revenue for the 2023 calendar year. The board then asked the Hallmark Group to come back with a revised amount, including a variable assessment revenue into the projected cash flow for the 2023 year. After including this revenue, Hallmark found that a $4.50 acre-foot supplemental assessment would be sufficient to keep the water master from facing a cash deficit. On this slide,
So the original recommendation by several people was $5 an acre foot, and then any unused money would be carried over to 24. Was that the original thought?
yeah, so the Hallmark Group originally completed this cash flow assessment here that you're going to see, projection, I guess, here on the screen. When they originally created it, they left out the variable assessment that were collected in 2023. Why, I don't know, but it was not included. It was found at last board meeting that that amount was not included. After they included it, the board directed them to include that amount and come up with a new assessment. That is how they came up with the $4.50.
I wish them luck, because this Hallmark Group, ever since it's come on board, it's been the Italians say, a stone in your shoe. And the thing is that it's one thing after another, and that was a big component that they forgot to put that in there. So
I'm not sure why they didn't say.
Yeah, well, they're not going to tell you. But I mean, I'm not even there, and I read through all this stuff, and I'm listening to them on the thing. I'm going, anything. Yeah, thank you for.
No, that's fine. Okay, so I'm going to give you a little breakdown of the projected cash flow that they did provide when they created the $4.50 administrative assessment. As you can see, the $4.50 will create additional revenue, about $337,000 for the Water Master. This gives the Water Master total cash for 2023 approximately $1.1 million. With the projected cash is used, I guess, to pay all of their bills through the year, and also they included a $50,000 contingency there at the bottom. The total cash used for 2023 will be $967,349, leaving the cash for the end of the year at $201,644. They also included cash needed for the first quarter of 2024 at $180,000. With all of that, the remaining cash at the end of the year will be $21,644. Like I said, keeping the Water Master out of the deficit for the year 2023. Anybody have any questions?
Yeah, have they cut any of their cost to us? I know they're wanting to raise rates all the time, but have they,
Yeah, not that I know of. I know everybody's kind of working on looking at ways to cut costs, but
they haven't.
Not anything that's been presented for.
Yeah, I don't see where they've been willing to cut any cost, and they just want to raise rates, and they're committed to a contract. So basically, it's a change order. So I don't like it.
Is there any other questions?
Matt, we've got several items on this. So basically, the one you're looking at is the assessment direction from the board.
Yeah. So this item's going to come up for a vote tomorrow to approve a supplemental assessment for 2023. It's $4.50 per acre foot, less than $20,000 impact for Avek. Based on our assessment, most of that gets reimbursed by LA County Waterworks because they lease
What is your recommendation?
My recommendation is that we approve the $4.50 per acre foot of
How
supplement.
much?
$4.50.
It's almost double.
Almost double what the original $5 was. Right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
But the question is, the recommendation, the question I have is, this is say they're only use $3.50 of that money. Where's the surplus of that money go?
It rolls over. It goes into the reserve or contingency fund. So
For next year, right?
for next year.
Okay, and then, okay.
So that's staff's recommendation is that the board authorize me to vote to approve that.
You guys, there was cross conversations going. What'd you say about LA County Waterworks?
So, we lease about 75% of our production rights to LA County.
Right.
And part of that lease agreement says that they reimburse AVAC on a water master cost.
So at $20,000, we're not actually going to pay $20,000.
Yeah, we'll pay 75 or 25% of
Okay, is there anything else significant? Looks like there may be a few things.
Yeah, so that's one item. If
Can I make a comment real quick or a question?
Yeah.
So we're going to be okay, or the water master would be okay for 23 and into 24, but isn't that showing a deficit again in 25?
No, on the screen you can see the projected cash flow. So what if they approve the $4.50 per acre foot supplemental? Collect enough cash to get through this year. They're actually projecting to increase the assessments for next year from $5 per acre foot to $7.
So it would be the new rate?
That would be the new rate.
Now,
and then the following year it would go to $8 and stay at $8 through 2028.
What's the adjusted amount? Like 6,583 in year 2025. The very bottom as a negative.
Oh yeah, but I think that's what they're pulling from these reserves, maybe.
I just want to make the point that Director Donato in his question brought up is anything extra would roll over.
Correct.
And we just want to make sure that that the water master is secure in their finances. If we're addressing a year or two, why aren't we addressing several years if it's needed?
Yeah.
And then you pointed out the rates that would be proposed to be raised, which still have to be done in those years, right?
Yeah, if the $4.50 is approved tomorrow, that doesn't lock in the future year's rate. Each rate for each year gets approved annually.
And is that a supplemental?
No, that's total.
That's the total. So instead of the 5,
it would be 7.
It would be 7. And does that give them enough money?
Well, based on their cash flow, I mean, it's all contingent upon what their expenses are.
What they're charging us, and I think it's time for a change. Personally, I think
that's what I was going to say.
Yeah.
When is the Holman Group up?
So it's a 1-year contract. Their current contract ends the end of this calendar year.
What about the attorney and the engineer?
Todd Groundwater, as the water master engineer, their contract goes through 2024.
Okay.
What does number 16, 17 mean?
You'll know this what the farmers are trying to do, the landowners and everybody's trying to do. If they don't get a handle on the core expenses of these 3 entities, it's literally gonna bankrupt a lot of situations. I mean, you can't keep on giving cost of living and, these already high rates. It's just like we're seeing right now. I mean, with this metropolitan situation and the High Desert Water Bank. So it's just, I'm just bringing it up for people that are real close to the situation. They're going to need to, somebody's going to have to stop letting their nails grow. They're going to have to cut those things so it works for everybody and make this thing work long term. Because what Director Miller just said is 100% correct. If any of these numbers are wrong, and we already found one thing was been found that they forgot to put in there, they could throw this whole thing off. I was going to ask the question, who audited their report?
Yeah.
Which then it would be another expense. That's number one. Number two, they've got to stop on this 4-to-1 vote, 5-0 vote thing is also costing a lot of money. It's costing, I did the numbers, it's costing 10 to 15% every time they have to table something and go back and change it. Just remember that. Every time all these numbers you guys are doing, the attorney and the engineer have to review it at an hourly rate.
Yeah.
So if you can't come to a conclusion, the board, and figure like a 4-to-1, start with a 4-to-1 vote, you're not going to have enough money in the next year and a half, because they're going to be tabling stuff back and forth. So you need to keep those two things in mind, because that's where I calculated 10 to 15% more expenses because they're going back on this.
Matt, that 16 and 17, are we paying to administer the fee?
You're looking at page 76.
16 and 17.
Item 16 and 17 on the agenda tomorrow has to do with the replacement water assessment. And at the last meeting, there was some discussion and a recommendation to add a small fee to the replacement water assessment rate to administer it.
I can tell you, I'm going to vote no on it. I mean, people talk about the cost increases in California, and I said for years and years we do it to ourselves, and the board will probably vote for this, and we're doing it exactly to ourselves.
Yeah.
In Hallmark, they've been in for about a year.
6 months.
Half a year.
Yeah, they do not deserve, if they're that bad of estimating the cost, they do not deserve this increase.
So item 16 and 17 will probably be tabled.
They are.
They get at least taken a couple of years.
Yeah, you big table, not a problem.
Yeah.
That's another expense everybody's going to go through.
But you're recommending it, Matt, and the board will probably vote for it. And so we do it to ourselves. These increase in California. That's why California people are leaving. It's one of the most expensive places to do business.
It's most expensive.
Not because there's some outside force. Because all the little boards and committees, and it's crazy.
But they're just raising the rates. I mean, they haven't cut any of their fees, going forward. So it tells me they just want to put it on the landowners, all the time. And yeah, there is other ways. What was the other way, Matt, that we talked about with a storage agreement to raise some proceeds?
There's some landowners that are talking and kind of trying to push AVAC into agreeing to charge a storage fee for entities outside the valley storing water here in the valley, such as Metropolitan.
That ain't going to work.
So, and what I'm trying to do in this conversation.
I talked to some. I got calls on that, and you know what? They said no problem. But we're not leaving 10% of our entitlement.
Yeah.
So you want to charge them $10 an acre foot? They said they'll pay that all day long. They're leaving 10% in the groundwater.
Yeah. So that's part of my conversation with them is just educate them.
A direction to go
on the cost already being incurred by somebody like.
Main item that is regarding the increase, it appears. Unless anybody sees anything else, we should talk to Matt about.
That direction.
Anybody see anything else?
So we need direction on the supplemental assessment. We need direction for the supplemental assessment because that's coming to
the 450.
Item number 9.
Or otherwise they're out of money in September?
They'll run out of money, cash flow.
If we vote no on it, then it doesn't happen,
Correct.
then it could cause a catastrophe.
Yes. And that's why I'm recommending
Yeah,
against it.
you stop all transfers, you stop all water.
But it's a wake-up call too.
It is.
It's a one-time supplemental, George. It's a one-time.
Almost double it.
Well, let me
Yeah,
ask you this,
double.
let me ask you a question, because you're real close to it. How are you gonna vote?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I'm like George, I'm not for it, but I've got to look at it like.
Well, I'm not for it either, but I mean, if we have to, I'm not gonna, I don't, you know, I'm looking at, you know, I need help as a director, because I'm not, I listened to it on the Zoom, but you're there, you're physically, and you're on also, so whatever's fair, I'll vote that way.
Right.
That's how I'm looking at it.
Well, it's not fair.
No, I mean, fair to keep the organization.
Right.
That's all I'm saying.
Rob sits close to it, we all sit close to it. Here's the deal at the end of the day, if it's a one-time.
If we vote no, it'll be resolved.
What's that?
If we vote no, it'll be resolved in the committee. It'll do.
Well, if
They'll
we
think
vote
about
no, it
it.
won't go
No, it
through.
won't go through.
That would be a 4-1 vote.
It'll stop.
And that would be another $10,000 attorney fees. And
Until we had enough discussion, we have a motion.
Well, I personally.
We don't need a motion, we're just given,
Just give me direction.
Mr. President, we don't need a motion.
Excuse me.
We don't need a motion, we just do it by consensus.
Rob, do you want to input anything?
Yeah, of course. For the last 7 years, the Water Master has been running with a $5 assessment. We made the decision not to continue the administrative duties of the Water Master. That affected the rise in cost for a new administrator. That was going to happen when we did that. And so that was a decision we made. The $5 assessment has been the same for 7 years. We haven't done any cost of living adjustments to it. And also, we were collecting more until Ramp Down took it down to where we're at right now, which I think is 83,000.
Well, I think we need a motion on that. We did something a month or so ago. We voted. The consensus was no. There was some of it was $18,000, and that one hadn't passed. So I think it'd be better to be clear cut if we had clear directions.
Well, I would make a motion that we approve. Well, I'd make a motion that we give Matt the authority to vote yes on the $4.5 assessment, supplemental assessment.
Supplemental, which is a one-time.
Yeah, we haven't
Understand the motion is what?
I vote that we give Matt the authority to vote yes on the $4.50 supplemental assessment for 2023 for the Water Master.
A one-time, yeah.
We agree.
It'd be a one-time.
I would say.
You gotta get through. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Madam Secretary, we got a roll call?
Who was the second? Audrey.
Audrey, Director Miller.
Yeah, we got
Director
to do
Miller.
that.
Gary Van Dam,
Yes.
Audrey Miller,
Yes.
Robert Harris,
Yes.
Keith Dias,
Yes.
Drew Miller,
Yes.
sorry, Drew Mercy, Frank Donato,
Yes.
George Lane.
No. Okay, motion carried. Okay, thank you.
We don't need to take a vote on it, but the annual report is going to be considered tomorrow by the Water Master to file the annual report. We gave a brief presentation last meeting on that. I think it's clear that I want to vote to approve that. Avek staff has gone through the annual report. It's consistent with our numbers as far as production, groundwater storage, water banking numbers, etc.
Whose annual report? AVAC's annual report or their annual report?
Water Master's annual report.
Well, of course, now it looks good because we just gave them the fifth vote. Am I mistaken? If it would have been a 4-1 vote tomorrow, then they wouldn't be in good shape.
Yeah. So we need to approve the annual report tomorrow. The Water Master needs to approve it. Last meeting, I think Director Lane asked for a slide showing the change in water level. So what this slide shows is any changes in water level based on the USGS data collected. And this compares the spring of 2022 to the spring of 2023. The purple areas, or dark blue, show rise in groundwater level, and that lines up with Upper Amargosa Creek natural recharge, Low Rock Creek, and Big Rock Creek. So, as you know, we had a lot of runoff early this year, so those contributed to a rise in water level. The only areas that show a decline are around the west side water bank. And that's because AVAC early this year was still in heavy recovery mode coming out of the drought until we got the higher allocation. We didn't start really banking until April of this year.
As soon as MEC pumps 70,000 acre feet of water a year in there, that's going to change that whole side.
Whole West Valley will be purple. I think that was it. The other items are just information tomorrow.
Thank you, Angel.
Yeah, thank you, Angel. No.
You may want to take a break or go ahead and just keep going.
We have to go in closed session?
Yeah, I know.
Oh, I think we should go on to
Well, we have a brief GM report, but we can save that for next meeting.
Okay, let's keep going. Matt, you,
Yep, John's got a couple slides.
This is easy, nothing controversial here. I'll give you kind of an update on our facilities, what we're doing. George thought it'd be a good idea for the board to know periodically what we're doing with production and banking. So if you look at the chart, you can see that there's 3 boxes. The top ones are conventional treatment plants. The bottom left is recovery of stored imported water. And then the upper right is our groundwater recharge. So yeah, the Quartz Hill plant, where you see rated flow, that's the design flow. That's what the plant or facility was designed to do at max capacity. Quartz Hill's a 90 MGD plant. Our average flow the last few days has been 47. So we're almost 50% of capacity, or a little over 50% of capacity. Rosewood plant is off until we get the West Speaker fixed, which is done, and we'll probably bring that back on next week. Eastside Water Plant is 5 MGD, so we're at 50% capacity there. And District 37 is taking about 1.1 million gallons a day. 4 million gallons capacity if we were at max flow. And I think Frank said something about their wells out in District 37. A lot of rainfall, obviously they're pumping their wells, it's a lot cheaper for them. Those wells will eventually dry up as they always do, and then they'll be back on AVAC. So, what are we doing on the North Feeder with the Roseman plant off? Well, thank God we have SNP. The rated flow for SNP is 45 MGD. Certainly we don't have that much production. We don't have enough wells to do that. But the system will provide 45 MGD on maximum build out. So we're sending about 5 MGD north, and we're sending about 1 million gallons a day south to H&80th, to LA County, District 40. That's just to keep the south part of the SNP system turned over, so we always have chlorine, good back T samples. Eastside Water Bank is off, Bench Ranch wells are off, ag wells are off. As far as what we're putting in the ground, Westside Water Bank, upper right, we were historically, we thought about 200 acre feet a day was max, and that would be about 100 cubic feet per second flowing through there. That was back when a lot of farming was taking place, farmers were turning on and off, it was surface system. And so we never ran it above about 200 acre feet a day. Now that there's really no surges on the system, our engineering department calced out that safely we can put about 250 acre feet a day in the Westside Water Bank. So we stepped it up. We're doing about 245 acre feet a day. Eastside Water Bank, we've been pulling water out of that bank for several years with the drought. Now we're putting it back in. We can put in 3 million gallons a day, but we're doing about 2.5. And Upper Amargosa, rated flow at 17 to 25 million gallons a day. Current condition of those ponds, they haven't been ripped or scraped. We've only put about 5.5 million gallons a day out there. So overflowing the ponds, it's going into the creek. And it's okay that we're doing that because it's not going across any paved roads. We're keeping a close eye on that. Closer it gets to Avenue N, we'll back off the flow. But Palmdale is managing those ponds, the city of Palmdale. And Little Rock Creek cooperative project with LCID, they're flowing 20 MGD into the creek. So we're trying to maximize everything out of the aqueduct that we can for our grade allocation. And I think we will see the Acton intertie increase probably in September, is my guess.
So, John, on Emagosa, what are you going to do? Wait for it to dissipate and you have to go in there and dig it up so you get better perk?
Yeah, I think once we're done putting water in for the year, then we're going to let it dry out. We'll have to have somebody go in there, deep rip those ponds like we do for our beds. Deep rip, scrape them, deep rip them, then they'll be ready for the next recharge. Those ponds have been sitting for several years, not been used, so that will help. That'll probably at least double what we get in.
Yeah, because it's real sandy in that area.
Yeah, they've been packed down. When they were constructed, they were never ripped. So anyway, West feeder repairs are complete. That went very well until we get the bill and see what they're charging us to fix it, but it was the time and material. And then treatment is really good. You'll notice the aqueduct's turning a little greener with peat. Typical this time of year. It's just a lot of algae, but treatment is still very, very good. So I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Yes. Thanks, John.
Thanks, John.
Thank you, John.
Just a couple more items. We've seen this chart before, just shows our available 2023 water supply. We're going to meet all of our customer demands, about 38,000 acre feet. We're recharging, our goal is to recharge about 60,000 acre feet. Transfers and exchanges, most of that volume there was approved at the last meeting with some transfers. So that's estimated to be about 52,000 acre feet, and that leaves about 22,000 acre feet of carryover in San Luis that we can use in 2020. So that is our water supply plan for 2023, and we'll keep the board updated if any of that changes. Some upcoming events and schedule. We talked about the Water Master meeting tomorrow here at 10 o'clock. We are set to present the draft budget to the Finance Committee on August 3rd. And then Holly will reach out to the board, make sure everybody's available, but I thought we could have a special board meeting or workshop on the 15th of August to review the 2023-2024 budget. That is all I have today, unless you have any questions.
Thank you. Is there any other questions from our general manager? Thank you, Matt.
Thank you.
That'll bring us item number 10, director's reports. If there's any item?
I have a comment. I'm not seeing our alerts reports. Are you guys seeing the state, what I'm talking about, the alerts?
No.
We used to get them and they just died. And we just renewed that membership. It's the California Chamber of Commerce.
I had one comment. We've lost two matriarchs in the valley, Brett Smith and Dr. Brett Smith and Stephen B. Marvin, owner, my Uncle Hank.
Really?
Yep. So they both passed away.
Long-time family in the AV.
Yeah, both of them.
Yeah, it was right.
Brett was 91 years old.
Yeah.
And Uncle Hank was 85.
Yeah, one of the pioneering families.
I just have one. We had a meeting for the Special District Association in North LA County. That's the CSDA chapter for Antelope Valley, Santa Clarita, the LA County side. And we're planning a quarterly luncheon that I believe is going to be here. That's going to be on October 12th. Don't have a guest speaker yet, but we'll keep you posted.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, it'll move us on to request for future agenda items. Okay, closed session, so in the motion to go into closed session, and we'll take a 10 minutes.
Attorney report? Attorney report?
Yeah, I thought I asked, but attorney reports, maybe I didn't.
I'm here, George. I have no report.
Okay. Yeah, thank you.
Supposed to go into closed session?
Did we have a motion, Director Miller, to go in closed session?
I'll second that motion.
Rob. Second by Director Paris. Okay, Madam Secretary.
Is that for items 13A and 13B, both?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay.
Ollie, do you have me in that meeting?
No, I think you're conflicted out, Jim, for both those items.
Okay, well, good night, everybody. Thank you.
Good night, Jim. Roll call, Gary Van Dam,
Yes.
Audrey Miller,
Yes.
Robert Paris,
Yes.
Keith Dias,
Yes.
Drew Mercy,
Yes.
Frank Donato,
Yes.
Gordon Lee.
Yes. Motion carried, and we'll take a 5-minute recess for 10 minutes.